I kept arriving at the same pain. Different relationship, different person, different set of hopes, same destination. And I used to tell myself that loneliness was the hardest part of all of it. But I have learned that nothing is more painful than giving yourself to someone who is incapable of recognizing your value. A man more threatened or intimidated by you than moved to protect and cover you. And then God showed me something that changed everything about why I kept ending up there. I was the common denominator. And that, I want to tell you today, is the best news you will hear all week. Hey, welcome to Beyond Believing. I am Katie Ann. Today, I want to speak to two women. The woman who keeps finding herself in the same painful relationship cycle, different person, same ache. She is the one we usually think of when we talk about loneliness after divorce. And the woman who has shut that door entirely, she has decided relationships are not something she is willing to pursue. She fills her life with her children, her work, her calling, and she tells herself that is enough. Both of you are running the same pattern, just in opposite directions. And what God showed me about that pattern, I want to show you today. Let me tell you what this pattern actually looks like. For the chaser, the woman who keeps reaching for relationships, it looks like hope, a new connection, someone who seems, for a while, like he might be the one who finally satisfies the ache. And it feels right and good and like it is finally working until it isn't. Until the insufficiency shows up again, until she finds herself somehow in the same pain she thought she had left behind. And then there is the other woman in this room, the one who has decided she is done. She has been hurt enough. She has given enough. She is not going to put herself in a position to be disappointed again. And so she turns with everything she has toward her children. And I want to say this with every bit of care I have because I know how much you love them. I know what it is like to be that child because I was her. Without realizing it, completely without meaning to, you're asking your children to fill a void. You're giving them the warmth, the closeness, the sense of being needed and loved and chosen. And they give it back. They are present, available, and love you completely. And in the quiet, they begin to carry something they were never designed to carry, your emotional safety. And I want to say this not to create guilt, but because I have watched it. I have lived it from both sides. I have seen it in my own siblings. I see it in my own children, despite how carefully and intentionally I have tried to protect them from it. The pattern does not break through effort or good intentions alone. I know because I have had both and it is still present. It breaks when we do the internal work, when we finally let God fill what we have been asking everyone else to fill. Because when our children learn that love means carrying someone else's emotional weight, they take that into every relationship they will ever have. And if we want to give them something genuinely different, we have to first be willing to receive it ourselves. Now, here is what both of these women have in common. The chaser and the cutoff are not actually opposites. They are two versions of the same reaching. One reaches outward for a person. One reaches inward toward her children. But both are reaching for a human presence to satisfy something that only God's presence can give. And both are asking the people they love most to do a job those people were never designed to do. And here's the best news I have ever received about my own pain. I had a choice. And if I had a choice then, you have a choice now. The pattern is not your destiny. It is just what happens when the real thing has not yet become more real than the substitute. I want to take you to a psalm because I think David wrote it in exactly the season you are in right now. Psalm 143. David is not doing well. He is overwhelmed and exhausted, and his soul is crushed. He is not writing from a place of resolution. He is writing from the middle. And in verse 6, he says this, I stretch out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. That is not the prayer of a woman who has found peace. That is the language of desperate, specific thirst. Parched land does not want a little water. It does not want something that approximates water. It wants the real thing completely, urgently, with nothing else able to satisfy it. And notice what David does with that thirst. He does not reach for a substitute. He stretches his arms toward God. Augustine put it in one sentence, and when I read it for the first time, I felt seen in a way I had not expected. He says, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in thee." Our heart is restless until it rests in thee. Not restless because you are broken, not because you have not healed enough or tried hard enough. Restless because you were made for a specific presence and nothing else. No person, no child, no title, no work can give your heart the rest it was designed for. Every substitute you have reached for has been genuinely insufficient, not evil, just structurally incapable of producing what your soul was made to find only in Him. Paul writes to the Corinthians about spiritual growth, about the difference between being fed on milk and being fed on meat. In 1 Corinthians 3:1-2, he says, "Brothers and sisters, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly, mere infants in Christ. I gave you milk, not solid food, for you were not yet ready for it." Milk is not bad. It is what we start with, but there is a point where milk is no longer sufficient. And I think many of us, in our loneliness after divorce, have been fed on the milk of human connection and wondering why we are still hungry. Not because we are spiritually immature, but because we have not yet moved from knowing about His presence to actually experiencing it. There is a difference between knowing that God is with you and encountering His presence specifically, enough that you stop needing a substitute. You cannot get there by trying harder. You get there by experience, by encounter, one honest, specific reach at a time. And when you begin to actually experience His presence in your loneliness, not just believe in it theologically, the desire for the authentic begins to outweigh the desire for anything less. Not because you became holier, because you encountered something real. And the counterfeit stopped satisfying the way that it used to. And sometimes, I want to say this gently, God allows the pain of the counterfeit to linger a little longer than we want. Not to punish us, but to protect us, to help us lose our appetite for what was never going to sustain us. I want to give you 3 questions to carry out of this conversation. Not to give you more to carry, but because these are the questions that began to move me. First, what have I been asking people to give me that only God can give? Name it specifically. Is it comfort, security, the feeling of being fully known, of being chosen and protected and covered? Whatever it is, God can hold it. He is not overwhelmed by the depth of your thirst. Second, what would it look like to stretch my arms toward God with that specific need? Today, not a general prayer, a specific one. David did not say, "I am a little thirsty." He said, "My soul thirsts like a parched land." God can handle the honest ask. And third, what is one thing I am willing to believe is also true, or maybe more true, about this pattern? Not something you fully believe yet. The beginning of believing it. There is a difference. Maybe it is I am learning to believe His presence is available to me right now. Or I want to believe His healing is working in me even when I cannot feel it. Or maybe I know other women have walked through this and found Him sufficient, which means I can too. And then ask yourself, how could that be true? How do I know that is true? Because those questions, asked honestly, begin to build new pathways in your thinking, not by pretending the pain is not real, by opening your hands to something more true than what the pattern has been telling you. And here is what I want to leave with you today. C.S. Lewis, because no one has described what God is doing in this season better than he did. He says, imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, you can understand what he is doing. He's getting the drains right, stopping the leaks in the roof, and so on. You knew all those jobs needed doing, and so you are not surprised. But presently, he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is he doing? The explanation is that he is building quite a different house from the one you thought of. Throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were going to be made into a decent little cottage, but he is building a palace. His love is greater than your pain, greater than any pain on this earth. And he is not patching what broke. He is building the palace. You, my friend, are not broken. You are not uniquely damaged. You are not too much. You are not disqualified from love. You are a woman with a soul that was made for a specific presence, and you have been looking for it in places that were never going to hold it. The pattern is not your destiny. Your children are not responsible for your emotional safety, and no man's inability to recognize your worth is a reflection of your value. The ache you feel right now is not evidence that God is absent. It is evidence that he made you for something more than you have been settling for. Stretch out your arms toward him, not because you feel it yet, but because your soul is parched, and he is the only one who will actually satisfy it. And what he builds in you through this, you are going to want to be ready to receive it. One question I'm going to remind you of to carry this week with you. What have you been asking people to give you that only God can give? Just start there. Be honest. Because the moment you can name it, you can bring it to the right place. This is the work that I do in my coaching, not to be the answer, but to point you to the one who is, to remind you that you have access to everything you truly desire and to help you begin living like it today. If that conversation is one you are ready to have, you can apply for coaching at coachkatieann.com/call. The link is in the show notes. And next week, I want to talk about what it looks like when you stop reaching for what cannot satisfy. Because God showed me something about what was waiting on the other side of that. And I have been looking forward to telling you all about it. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll see you then.